good. Good evening and welcome to the January 19th regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. And I don't have my agenda in front of me. But anyway, thank you. We appreciate everyone coming tonight. I know during these times with COVID numbers rising, it's sometimes you question whether you should, but it's important to participate. So we appreciate you being here. With that being said, tonight the invocation will be given by our county manager, Lance Metzler. And after that, I'll ask if Reese Purtle will give our Pledge of Allegiance, and we do have a flag tonight. So if you will stand if possible. And Lance?
Would please join me with prayer to bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, please bless our Board of Commissioners as they have many challenges ahead of them with the decisions they make tonight and all the ones that lay in front of them in the future. Please give them the strength and integrity to make good, solid decisions for the best interest of the entire population of Rockingham County. Some decisions may not be popular to make, but it's the Board's responsibility to serve and protect each and every one of us who dwell in Rockingham County. Lord, continue to be our leader and lead us to make our county the best it can be, and that is through your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please face the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Folks, we work from a prepared agenda that's been published, and everyone should have had access to that. There were copies at the back of the room. And I'll ask if there are any changes to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to add to the agenda after public comment, so we're going to call it 6.1, a COVID update by our Public Health Director.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Purtle. And you make that in form of a motion.
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of the approval of the agenda with the change, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. The agenda is approved. Yes. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it is one.
I gave it to you.
I would amend my motion. I would amend my motion to add that. Or, well, I'll make a new motion to add. How about that?
We'll just do a second motion.
I'll do a second motion.
I'll do the second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Well, just
Well-
so public knows, that's to add,
The 2021 statewide facility needs survey.
Dr. Shotwell and Dr.
Very good, very good. Thank you. I appreciate your input, Commissioner Berger. We're about to bypass that. So we do have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Very good, thank you. Now we have an agenda approved, I think. I see our clerk thumbs up, so that's good. All right, additional items that we have a consent agenda. These are non-controversial items that generally normal business of the county government and non-controversial. So if you have any questions with those, please direct those to our county manager. He'll be glad to answer those questions. And do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Very good. The consent agenda is approved. Our next item is public comment, and we have no individuals signed up for public comment tonight. And I'm looking around the room, I don't see anybody waving. So that takes us to item 6.1. Mr. Metzler, would you like to introduce our speaker?
Yes, we have our new Public Health Director, Trey Wright. He came from the Nash County, I think it's the Assistant Public Health Director, and he comes from a very fine educational institution. He's a fellow East Carolina Pirate. So with that being said, Mr. Wright.
How's everybody doing?
That sounds
Fine.
like a bunch of hogwash.
I come to give you a update about this. This is a little bit of history right here. We have a cabinet in the health department of different things throughout public health history. This was the first vaccine here in the county. Though it's empty, my heart still beats thinking about it, that moment. But I want to talk a little bit about the vaccines that we've administered here with our public health department. As of yesterday, I haven't had the numbers for today, we have done 1,390 vaccines, our health department as a provider. 600 of that was last Tuesday in a mass drive-through clinic that we did for 75 and older. I'm very proud of those numbers. We have done 1,390 when we received this very first dose just a few days before Christmas. I'm very proud of that. With that, we've had some interesting things that we've learned. Just for example, when we did our call system for Thursday's clinic, we started it on Friday. We had the numbers pulled, and just from 1 hour of scheduling for that, the county received or transfers of 30,000 calls or transfers through the system. Again, today, excuse me, let me make sure I pull all that too. That was from 10 to 11. The hour prior was 11,000. Generally, every day it's about 8,000 calls are transferred normally. Today, when we opened up additional spots for Thursday, in just 30 minutes, we received through the system 5,000 calls. And with that, it's tough because I know that's all the allocation that I have that I can give out, that I've received from federal and state allocations. So I bring that to you all to let you know we're working hard. As soon as we get a shot, the vaccine, we're trying to make sure we put it in the shot in the arm of people that are willing and want it. It's tough because if you look, the state only receives about 120,000 doses a week, but we need to be doing about 280,000 a week in the state to meet the demand. So with each vaccine clinic, we're learning new things, whether it be by appointment, drive-through, how we can get it to folks the quickest way we can, and make sure we can get them ready for that second dose when it's allocated. So thank you all for having me, and again, it's amazing to think about this right here.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. I appreciate you being here. I think that a couple of commissioners have some questions. Commissioner Richardson, did I see you?
Yes, you did. I wanted to thank you and the team. I'm very grateful that our county hasn't suffered some of the congestion and problems in other counties, and I wish, and some of us are trying to get you more doses to take care of that, but please convey to your staff, we appreciate their diligence in getting this to the public as rapidly as they can.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Travis?
Yeah, Trey, I just want to say welcome to Rockingham County. And I know you're coming in under some big things happening, but the question I have is, I know the rollout is a little tough. I got a lot of calls, people complaining, taking hours, and I think you were overwhelmed, but I think y'all working it out, y'all got it kind of settled down now. But just so the public will know, how many vaccinations did the state give Rockingham County on that first trip?
That first trip, we had 600,
600.
and we did 600.
600 for a county of 92,000 people. The governor really pushed it hard to get this fixed, huh?
Yes, sir.
600 doses. I mean, that's what I wanted the public to know. 600 doses for 92,000 people. So how much is coming next go around?
We should be receiving 500.
500. They really want this fixed real quick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir.
And then we have the second round to give those first 600 when?
We received that on Friday, and that was another 500. So I have to do the second dose simultaneously as doing first doses as well.
Now, are they basing these doses per population? How are they figuring how much to give Rockingham County?
Some of it's based on demographics by population, also too
So it's not about
capacity.
age?
No, sir.
So, because we got a lot of big age population, so it's not about age, it's about the numbers.
Yes, sir. In some capacity, some counties, when to be a provider, they've asked us to take pictures of our freezers, our refrigerators, inside, outside, make, model, serial number. So they look at that for counties. Some small counties may not have that capacity even to have 100 doses.
Right. I appreciate all your hard work. I know you're coming in under stress, but one last question. I've got some reports that other counties, especially the big ones, are using their EMTs to help give shots and stuff? Are we doing anything like that?
We are training them as we speak so they can go out as well.
Thank you. That's what the public want to know. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, just for clarification, this past Tuesday, we had everybody line up and there weren't appointments. But to alleviate that traffic and all that congestion, I understand we've gone to appointment only, correct?
Yes, sir. We used an electronic, I call it Sign Up Genius, but to schedule by appointment blocks so folks can come in to alleviate some
And
of that
that
traffic.
link is on the main splash page of our website, is that correct?
Yes, sir. When we have available spots, we put it back up in a phone system, and when it's full, we pull it back down.
So if I understand right, at the top of that banner, if someone logs onto our website, it tells us if there are vaccines or appointments available, they can click on that.
Yes, sir.
And just to reiterate, if they don't have computer access, they can call in. We have a number, 397-0064.
Say that one more time.
Was it 394-0064?
Say that one more time.
336-394-0064.
Thank you, Lance. I
Put that on
appreciate
the
it.
website.
question?
I think it's on there.
All right, Commissioner Berger?
So the 600 is the number that the county administered, but there's also other places in the county that are administering the vaccine as well. Is that right?
Yes, sir. The hospitals receive allocations as well where they would do their own staff. We're in the process of partnering with our hospitals if they have allocations that they can transfer to us or try to run community clinics with them as well.
And as far as your allocation, it's not limited to people from Rockingham County.
No, sir. They have told us on several meetings that this is a federal allocation, so if they come from another county, we accept it as well from other states.
But with that in mind, are we receiving any communication from other counties that may have the vaccine to where we can refer our citizens?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there anything available? I mean, how are these people from other counties finding out that we have the vaccine available?
From some of our media pages and our press releases when we do a clinic that they'll know to come here.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to help refer people elsewhere? I mean, if we're doing the media releases, I'm sure other places are as well.
There have been that we've heard of other counties, or at least a county, that has told their citizens that they're out and to go search them from other counties.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Trey, we're still trying to vaccinate all the requests, or meet all the requests that we have for the 75 and older demographic. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And we haven't started doing any of the 65 and up yet, have we?
No, sir. We'll hit some of that target group as well this Thursday.
And I think the governor's identified that they can be vaccinated, but just we haven't met the criteria, or we haven't vaccinated all the requests we have at the 75 and over.
No, sir. After we had the clinic on Tuesday, that a little bit later that week, the governor did open it up to 65 and older, and we had not even met the quota per se of that older group.
And that's my concern, is that based on the number of dosage units that this county's received, to expand the number of folks eligible to be vaccinated, we need to make it clear that we have a limited number, and we can't even don't have enough dosage units to vaccinate the 75 and over.
Yeah, that's right.
So to say that to open it up for the 65 and over really isn't a feasible thing for us to do right now.
No, sir. Based off census estimates, there's about 19,000 folks over the age of 65 in this county. And I joke about it and say, well, 30,000 calls, I think they called twice. But it's good to know it's good to know that there is that demand there. But the hard part for me is I can't assist with that demand just based on limited allocation.
And that's my concern, is that we've had roughly, 1,390 doses dispensed in Rockingham County, or through the health department. That's not counting the hospitals, right?
No, sir.
All right. Because I have a relative that went to get a shot at the hospital, and they were, I think, the fifth person to get the shot. The four in front of them were from 2 hours plus from Rockingham County getting their shot. And it's just, the plan wasn't well executed from Raleigh to throughout the state, and I think the governor holds a lot of that responsibility.
Commissioner Travis?
One last thing, Trey. Is there any way we can get the numbers of total vaccinations that's happened in Rockingham County, hospitals and all?
Yes, sir. Every Tuesday, the state updates that. Since it's only updated once a week, it's a little bit behind.
Shoot us an email or something.
Yes, sir.
Now, would that include residents from Rockingham County who go to Guilford County or somewhere else?
Yes, sir. When they
Okay.
put it into the CVMS federal system for that vaccine, it will show their county of
I
residence,
just
and
want
that's
to know
where.
Rockingham County.
Yes, sir.
Well, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your department's efforts to service the taxpayers in the community. Commissioner Purdy?
Yeah, and I thank you and your staff. I know you've been working diligently, and I've talked to members of your staff as well as other healthcare workers across the county, and I appreciate all their efforts. And I just ask that, my only request is that we keep the public informed. There's a lot of folks out there, they're not necessarily frustrated at the health department. They're frustrated at the process at which and the pace at which it's moving. And if we just keep those folks informed and let them know that, we've had 1,390 dosage units in the county, and we've dispensed them all. We had 600 the first day, and we dispensed it all. We're giving it away. We're finding an arm as fast as we can. And I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you and your staff.
Thank you. It's been a fun first 43 days.
Well, hopefully it'll get better.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Very good. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, that moves us on to item 7, Dr. Sonja Parks and Dr. Rodney Shotwell. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just want to say this too before I forget. I cannot thank you all enough for the relationship that we've had with the health department since March. I mean, between Ms. Young and now Mr. Wright, it's been a really good working relationship, because when we have questions, they have been a resource. And I know that they've gotten called multiple times some days from us, but they've always been so patient and so kind to help us, because we're trying to help not only our students but also some parents and staff members at the same time. So I just felt really strong that I needed to say that. I want to again thank you all, Mr. Metzler and everyone here, because tonight what we're going to do is going to bring you an update on the capital projects that you all have approved in the past. And also, we're going to look at our state facility needs survey that occurs every 5 years. And then we're also going to talk about the restricted sales tax request that we have before you tonight as well. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to update you on our capital projects. The first project that we're going to take a look at is our security project. This was in all of our schools. The budget amount from the county was $523,000. The total cost of the project was $522,633.93. And you will see a picture of the door camera faces at the access door. And this is an example of an access door system to get into a school. And so this may look a little different, and it may vary from school to school, but this project is completed, and we certainly thank you for funding this project. We also did a paving project called Operation Pothole. We went around the county at all of our schools, and we repaired our potholes as well as crack fill, and then we did some pavement areas. You'll see that the budget amount was $544,900, and the total cost of the project was $537,500. Reedsville High School roof. This was in bad repair, and we were able to award this contract to Guaranteed Systems. They replaced this. It's on the north end side of the main building. The final inspection was February 14th, 2020, and the budget amount was $349,800, and that was the cost of the project. So that was the lowest bid for that particular project. Stonewall roof replacement. AAR of North Carolina was awarded this contract for Stoneville. This is in the primary building, which we call Building 100. The inspection also for this one was February 14th of 2020. And you will see that we asked for the county $292,000. However, the lowest bid that we had was $355,755. That was the lowest bid. So then we used the remaining from our capital budget. Reedsville Middle School cooling tower. We awarded this to Superior Mechanical Services. This was removed. The tower was removed on July 7th and was fully operational on July 27th. We asked for $250,000 and the project ending cost was $187,000. We installed interactive projectors and boards in all of our 3-5 classrooms, and we requested $329,000. And the project ended with $321,972.46. And of course, this is something that we want to continue on. Do you want to add?
Yeah, and I also want to say, because because of the volume of us being able to purchase the equipment, we had some money that was remaining, and I asked you all for permission to go ahead and start putting some of those in second grade classrooms, and we were able to do that. And I also want you all to know too, that it is truly a partnership, and I did send an email out to all staff and explain to them that it was because of your leadership and your funding is the reason why we have that new technology in there. And for a lot of them, we were able to use existing magnetic whiteboards. We still have the other boards, so in some of the schools like at Pillard, some of the older schools where they didn't have these, in the new, like the newer schools, we're able to put those up. But it does everything like an active board, but it doesn't wear out.
But this is definitely neat that we want to continue to do in K2 and then in our upper grades as well. All right, our track. So we contracted with Carolina Port Works for this project, and we requested $450,000. We are still finishing up the invoices for this particular project, but right now my estimated total cost is $316,079.84. So if you've not had a chance to go and see this track, I'd love for you to drop by and see it. It looks great, but we are still working out a few kinks with the grassy areas. I want it to be perfect, and so I reached out to them today with a few things. So still holding on to the last invoice until everything is in place.
And we also had a major drainage system that was installed on the home side to take care of a lot of the water issues that we were having.
Our next project, due to a storm damage that we had back in February 6th and 7th of 2020, we worked with Department of Public Instruction to fund this project because it was due to the storm, there was lots of damage. So we asked the county for $5,000 for the deductible for insurance, and then we're going to be reimbursed for this project for $189,639.70. And so we're working with the state on finalizing that particular project.
It's the best $5,000 roof we've ever bought.
I do want to say that there was some issues here with some of the metal. They had a new person learning how to cut metal, and asked them to tear it all off and start again because it was just not to the satisfaction that we wanted to see. So they're still working on that. Moorhead Gym Roof, we are currently doing this one right now. Professional Roofing was awarded this contract. The budget amount was $480,000, and the total cost right now is not complete. So that's sort of where we are. The lowest bid for this project, however, was $440,558.
Yeah, and because of the leaks in there, we had the court bubble up. Luckily, it wasn't on the playing side, but it was on the, like, 2 entries going into the boys and girls locker room. When you're looking in there, we had some leaking coming in there. all that's been taken care of. We prepared the floor, and I believe, is it this Friday, they're actually going to get to play?
Yes, yes, we're
It-
excited about
Yeah,
that.
you know, they shaved just enough off to take all the stencils off and redid everything in there, and they did it with stain, and I'm just gonna tell you, it's a really, really good job, and I know several of y'all in here are Moorhead grads. So you would be very proud of what it looks like, because you have such a massive gym in there, and also with the lights project, it just looks really, really nice in there.
All right, this next one was probably one of our most challenging projects this year. Was our South End modular units that we placed over at South End. Our board asked for us to purchase 4 modular units. They wanted them to be used. And so Dr. Shotwell was able to find 4 of them over in Yadkin County Schools. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the superintendent over there, he and I are really good friends, and I just asked him, I put out an all-call to all the superintendents to see, because I know some of them had some building projects, but a lot of them had already sold off some. He had several because they did some consolidation with some of their schools, and so we actually went over there and put our eyes on all of these trailers, and so we were able to pick from what they had to be able to bring them over here, and the folks, and I'll let Sanjay talk about that, but the folks that transported them over here were absolutely awesome to work with. They made sure they got here in one piece and put it all together.
So you're all probably looking at thinking, oh my goodness, but let me tell you, we have really flipped these modular units. I'm very proud of this project. We worked with Max Summey. He was our engineer. He developed our civil site plans. We worked also with Tony Goolsby's family. He was the one that moved our units for us and set them up. We had the support of Wright and Ray all the way through the project. And he helped us, get lumber during a time where it was really hard to get pressure-treated lumber. And so these units are in good structural shape. And you can see in the corner here, you can see what they look like inside. Our maintenance team has worked very hard on these units. And then,
And the boards in there too are the part of the project that you all funded.
yes, see over here in that corner. And just this past week, we installed a new canopy. Our Board of Education asked for us to install a canopy, and we did that. That was an additional $23,185 paid out of capital funds. And this really turned out very nice. So if you have an opportunity and you're over in the Reidsville area, please stop by and see this project. We're very proud of this project, and the teams have really worked hard to make this happen. All right, our next project we worked on this year has been the Rockingham County Press Box. And you can see here how this project has improved over time. We brought in Wright and Ray for this project. They removed the cantilever, so you can see that across the top pictures. They worked on construction of the floors, the walls, installation of new windows. It also has a new standing seam roof. I think a picture of that on there. No, this was inside. A new standing seam roof. It was gray color to match our fire academy, and we put in a new white soffit, painted the outside, and installed a new flooring that you see here. You approved $85,000 for this project, and the total cost was $68,468.50. The next project we worked on was the Leesville Spray Elementary roof. This was a capital project, and Allied Roofing was awarded this contract. This basically was just removing our existing roofing system, and we replaced it with the shingle roof. And the total cost of this project was $245,645. This was 80,000 square feet. Another capital project, we had Philip Perry. He's a consulting engineer with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. His services are free, and so we used him to help us design the boiler system for South End. And this project was $59,500. Western Rockingham Middle School bleacher project. Our bleachers were in bad shape, And we even had to postpone a few games because they were not safe. And so we worked on this project, and you can see the final. We painted it, we did the new flooring and new bleachers, $135,087.50. Moorhead High School Security Vestibule. This again was a capital project. Contract was awarded to H.M. Kern. The final inspection was this past February, and the budget from capital was $98,000, and we came in at $98,000.
That also keeps people from being able to go straight into the school. When they come in, they have to go to the right where you see the door that's slightly open on the far right, on the right-hand picture. And when they go in there, there's somebody in there waiting. And even if they try to run past them, the next door to try to get into the school has a badge pass. And so you can't get in there unless they let you through. So it really does stop traffic from being able to come inside the school.
Breesville High School Machining Lab. Contract was awarded to Wright and Ray. We had a ribbon cutting on September 16th. I know many of you attended, and I appreciate that. You can see here, the ribbon cutting day. Students excited about this new opportunity. The budget from the capital was $284,630. Total cost of the project was $235,835.
And then we also have to thank Golden Leaf for $200,000 to go towards the project as well.
Okay, I want to sort of update you on our energy performance contract. We launched this in August. It's over an $8 million project. And you will see here on this slide, all of the schools where we have been going in and changing out all the urinals, the toilets, and updating the whole water conservation in our schools. So you can see schools that we have completed so far. And currently, right now, we're working at Breesville High School. A lot of this work happens at night. Crews are in our schools at night working. However, since we've had, our kids have been out, we've been able to use some opportunities during the day. But they are making great progress. Here is a listing of our lighting, schools that have been completed. And I just want to show you a before and after picture of what classrooms look like before and how bright they are after. This includes outdoor lighting. I'm sure you're hearing some feedback about that. Teachers and folks are really excited. And then Rockingham County High School insulation repairs. This was completed early in the project. And then our Dillard HVAC upgrades. You can sort of see the progress in the lower bottom part of how the team has updated the HVAC. And then our McMichael sewer credit. You want to say anything
Yeah,
about
I was
that?
going to say with the Rockingham insulation repairs, really the last 2 summers before doing this project, it was really hard to regulate the air in there because you couldn't bring it down as much as you wanted to, otherwise you'd create a rainforest. And so when we had our indoor graduation 2 years ago, we were doing everything we can to manage all that air, to have all those folks in the auditorium and also in the gymnasium for that. But now with all of this, I mean, the air is very, very cool coming in there. And so you should not receive any calls. I think Mr. Travis, your son goes to school there, and I know he can tell the difference in it.
We sold the old Williamsburg School. We sold this for $50,000. And the Johnson Street property, we sold this for $200,000. So we sold both of these properties in 2020.
And our board gave us the guidance to go ahead and try to let go of some of our inventory. And it played very well. They allowed Dr. Parks and I on the Johnson Street property to apply for rezoning. And that definitely helped. We got conditional O&I. And I really do think that's what helped us with the price, because we had several upset bids before we landed on the final price of $200,000.
And also, this past school year, we had 3 successful auctions in 2019. And you will see that that totaled $54,028.10. Other projects that we're working on right now, we have the Western tennis courts that we're working on. We're going to be doing a pre-bid meeting for that very soon. Money has been set aside from you for that project. $150,000 we have in grant funds for the tennis courts, and then $218,200 in county funds. We've been working on the band room at Moorhead High School, so that will be an update that we'll be able to give you soon. Moorhead High School gym floor, which Dr. Shotwell just mentioned, and then Monroe gym floor, are just some current projects that we're working on right now, in addition to our energy performance contract, which is a daily project. All right. So now that sort of moves us into the facility needs.
I didn't know if anybody had any questions about this
On
first part of the project.
Gentlemen, any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Richardson.
Particularly interested also from RCC's side of it. Very good to see the computerized machining equipment at Reeves. How many students are involved in that program, do you know?
I think there's a total of between 30 to 35 that we have in the class, because we were able to have the first official class for this upcoming spring semester. So we've been working on grooming some students to get them prepared for it back in the fall. And I'll get you a firm number. I will get the number from Dr. Scott, and I'll have them sure. But it's something that we do have a pathway that's built, working with our middle school into the high school to make sure that we've got a good number of kids that are going to be coming through there. And we have an articulation agreement, obviously with RCC, that's going to help us for the kids to move on to the computerized side of it.
Would you share with the public the credentials that your students are going to graduate, if they're successful, will graduate with if they finish that program?
Yeah, they'll have basically an entry-level machining certification. And I'll be honest with you, there's people out there waiting for us to start cranking these students out and getting them to go to RCC. What we're really also trying to do is also something that you and Dr. Scott helped put together was the Rocket Top program, because we are working with several companies that have that need, and this is just another way for us to be able to do that for them. So it's going to be it's going to be really good. They're going to have a really nice part-time job while they're in high school.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Travis.
Yeah, Dr. Park, Dr. Shotwell, thank you for coming on. Real quick, based on the projects you just completed and you showed us, some of them came in under budget. Where's that money going that's saved?
So if it's capital, from our capital budget, then
Right.
I just reallocate it to the next.
You just put it right back into capital funds,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
How much is in capital funds now that was saved?
That was saved.
Well, there's local capital, that's the $888,000 that you all allocate to us.
Yeah.
And then it's
That's right, with
restricted
our
sales
budget.
tax.
That's right.
But the restricted sales tax, if it gets used for anything else, we have to bring it before you all. So if there's savings in there, we don't have the money. Y'all have the money.
Right.
So we get reimbursed, because when we're finished with the project, we submit the bills and then we get paid back.
That's what I needed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Berger?
So did we end up with a long-term solution? I heard Western tennis courts, and for a long time, there was never a long-term solution. What did we end up with there?
We ended up putting it on our own property at Western Rockingham Middle School. We actually found a plot of land that did not have water underneath it, because that's been the problem everywhere that we've looked. Yeah, I mean, when the courts were built over at McMichael, they lasted for a long time, but if y'all, some of y'all may not have been on the board at the time, but when we were looking at it, it was going to be close to $500,000 to dig out the soil, put in the different layers, and they were only going to guarantee us 15 years, and that wasn't going to work. So I know that it's been a big push for this, Mr. Berger, but they're going to be happy with this, because it's going to be dry, and it's going to be easy access for the public to be able to get to it.
Okay. Then the other question I've got, the roof at Leaksville Spray.
Yes, sir.
That building is approximately the same age as a few other elementary schools in the county.
It's the same, it's close to the same age as Wentworth. They were built in the early 90s.
Okay. Are we having the same issue with Wentworth, or was that done?
No, with Wentworth, that was back before merger, so they have a metal roof
Okay.
in place instead of shingle. But we still have flat roofs over there. You just don't see it. But if you look at a Google map, you'll see the flat roofs up there. But right now, they're holding up really well.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Parks, continue on.
Okay. All right, so you probably remember 5 years ago in 2015, I brought you the facility needs survey. This is a survey that the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction requires us to do. And this is, Dr. Sharp was going to hold up the notebook. I sent you this electronically for you to review school by school. This is the website that you go to enter in all the data of our needs for our schools for the next 10 years. And so we have submitted this. And so tonight, I'm going to sort of jump through some of these slides, but I feel like you all pretty much know all this information. This is a summary of what our needs are. So when we went through and we looked at all of our schools, from the 0 to 5 year projection, we're looking at $104,049,325. If you look at the 6 to 10 year projection, you're looking at over $160,000. So this just is letting the state know
Yes.
that
Yes,
these
maybe.
are the needs
Yes.
of Rockingham County schools.
Hang on
And
one
tonight, you're just
second.
acknowledging those
I think
needs.
there was a question.
Yeah, no, actually,
160
million.
Yes, what did I say?
100,000.
Sorry. Right.
Okay.
104 billion.
Very good,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
So,
And part of that 6 to 10 includes 2 replacement schools, and there, which would be South End and Stoneville.
And those two numbers are additive, I assume?
Yes,
104 plus the 160 to get to 10 years.
yes.
Okay.
so you can see that when we get down to the planning table of deciding what project is next, it's very difficult to do. And so my next item will be, projects that we feel like, are very critical in moving forward with our restricted sales tax. So this is just a summary of it. You have the details by school, what is needed in this report. So tonight, we're just asking for your acknowledgement of this plan. Not that you approve it or anything like that. You just acknowledge that we have brought you the plan and that this is a summary of the needs.
So that requires no action on our part other than to say thank you for your attendance.
Just that you have acknowledged the plan and that I'll have your signature on the plan
So we just.
that we brought it to
What
you.
happens if we don't acknowledge it?
If I'm,
We'll be an asterisk in that report.
That's right.
let's ask John. For me to sign an acknowledgement of that, does the board need to make a motion that we acknowledge this?
Yes, this is a board decision, and so the chair or any member of the board will not sign a document without the complete board's approval.
All right, so we have a motion, I think, by Commissioner Richardson, and a second by Travis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you
Hang
very
on just
much.
1 second. Commissioner?
Your board's already taken this up, I'm assuming.
They did last Wednesday. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, good observation, thank you. Very good.
So then the next item is our fund request for restricted sales tax.
Yes. And, I know I've mentioned this before, but one of the things that happened back in at the first part of the last decade, we had the Title IX situation with the federal government and Office of Civil Rights. We had to basically build 4 softball fields that would be equal to baseball fields. And because of that, that took us out of the rotation with some roofs. It took us out of the rotation with some of the tracks. And even though we had 3 years to pay for it, and we were able to do it with our existing capital, that was coming in from the commissioners. So we didn't ask you all for that money. We just worked it in our budget. We were fortunate they let us do that. But what it did do, it put us really behind in terms of where we needed to be in terms of roofs. Because more so than anything else, as much as we need to do renovations and everything like that, if the building is wet, you just can't do anything on that. And so if you'll look at the roofs that we have listed on here, we have the Central Elementary School gymnasium. There we go. And then we have Western Rockingham, the 6th grade wing. Holmes Middle School, you can see that it is the yellow area there. It's the main area, main building. And then McMichael High School, in reality, the entire roof needs to be replaced. But that's a couple $1 million to try to do that all at once. So we're going to do this in sections. What we're doing here, this is the main area in the middle. This is where, the way the building was designed, this is where all the water travels to, and then it goes away. But this is where we have most of our leaks. And, you know, when Mr. Williams, the principal over there, calls, our maintenance crew knows almost exactly in the same area, but it's down to the threads. We've done all the patching, the rolling, and everything on there that we could possibly do. And this will be a big dent in what we need to do. So we're going to do McMichael similar to what we've done with Reidsville High School and try to do the roofs in parts so that we're not trying to do them all at the same time. And then we have, we also have 2 other roofs. The old Bethany Gym, what we have there, it is, we've got $150,000 down for it, but we have a solution for that roof that will buy us about 10 years. We've used this vinyl type roll-on material at Lincoln. We had some leaking areas on the small flat roof in the center of that school. We've used this product and we've not had any leaks at all. And so the gentleman came out, looked at the roof, and I know y'all been over there. You know, it does a good job still. When it rains, there's just a couple skylights that we still have issues with. But what we would do, we'd come in, we would take the skylights out, and then just roll over it right now. So that buys us 10 years before you'd actually have to do something major for a full roof replacement on that. And then the other request is for the main building, is the only building that we're asking to try to preserve. You know, it's very important to our community. It's also very important potentially for the future with our school facility needs as a possibility. But if we're going to do anything with that building, even if we allow the community to use it, it's got to be dried in. Because we're at that point now where, you know, there's not a time when there's a wind comes through there that you're not going to find some shingles that are blowing off because they're so rigid and crispy. Yes, can't think of a better word right now. Sorry. I'm just thinking of laid potato chips breaking off in the wind. So, and then below that, you'll see another priority that we had are the intercom systems at these schools. For most of them, the parts are not able to be found anymore. And the replacement intercom system will not have to use a standalone computer. It'll work through our network. So it's going to be much more efficient. We get calls from parents, like when there's an emergency issue, they use their phones too, but it's not nearly as loud as it would be using a pager system, and especially when you're talking about emergencies there. And then finally, that brings us to the last one here, our phones. What we're asking for are a replacement of all the phones in the district. We have upgraded them to the point that they can't be upgraded really anymore. And so as we have teachers leave or we're consolidating, we're taking phones that have been vacated from one room and using it to replace other phones. And like with our switchboard, we had to upgrade it, but getting them to talk to the old phones could potentially be an issue there. But if we do this, A set of used phones were $183,000. To me, you're better off just going ahead and biting the bullet and doing it right the first time, and it'll last a whole lot longer. I think you get your money's worth on that.
Excuse me, Dr. Shotwell, you mentioned something I just wanted to be sure to point out. We're talking about phones and intercoms in basically in the same rooms.
Yes.
And whereas the intercoms are hardwired, if the internet goes out or phone communications go out, that you can still communicate on campus
Yes,
using
it's an
intercom
internet system, so you'd still be able to use it on campus.
So that, in that way, you still got communications there in school if there were to be something with the internet.
Yes, sir.
Connection to the school.
Yes, sir.
So it
And-
gives you security.
Yes, sir. And also, some of these are the old simplex system, where you took the motherboard cards out for different hallways, when the lightning would come in and it would fry, and then you put a new one in there. We're getting to the point where our insurance is looking at this and saying, hey, you need to do something other than trying to make a claim on this, because we try to get it if we can, if there's a major thunderstorm, and try to add in those kinds of items, because it is rather expensive to fix it.
Very good. Do you have a question, Commissioner Burger?
Well, did your board vote on this
Yes, sir, please.
proposal? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, they did.
And you've included Bethany in
Yes,
this
sir.
one, because I saw discussions on that the other night.
We did, and we adjusted the spreadsheet for you to include that request.
Okay, and so the full board approved Bethany as well?
Yes.
Yes, sir, it was 7-0.
Okay. Any other questions, gentlemen?
So there's actually 14 on the list instead of 12, I think it's numbered correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just,
Yes, the numbering is incorrect, sorry about that.
sorry. I was sitting there trying to figure out what was added and what was, if there was anything deleted with the addition of Bethany. And Bethany is being used more so by the community than by the school.
There's a museum for that area, and right now they're in the original gym that's underneath in the basement, underneath the main floor. And so part of this would also allow the community to be able to utilize other areas of the school and have folks come in there. And we're also looking at maybe a long-term idea that if we get to the point where this could possibly be used for like a community center for that area, and as the area grows. They have a civic center, it's over there by the original, it's across from Moore Store over that near that way. It's smaller, so this would definitely give them some more room to be able to do that.
Gentlemen, any more questions?
Did we go to I think I attended a community hearing out there, a community meeting out there concerning the future of of this piece of property. And I'm trying to remember if we ever got any information as a result of that community meeting, if there was anything that was ever decided upon.
We did get feedback, and we did create a committee. Unfortunately, with COVID and everything, that particular project had been put on the back burner. But part of the push of the committee is to have a public-private partnership, so what I envision now, that if we get this dried in, then we can develop a more long-term solution for the building, and that there are people in the community who are willing to put money towards the project, but they want to see what that project's actually going to be before they do that. And I mean, anybody would be like that. So, but it's very favorable, because they are very, very proud of that building.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. Commissioner Travis?
Mr. Chairman, I've got questions, but not concerning the request for the sales tax. I reserve the right to ask questions after we take a motion on this, if it's okay.
Very good, very good. Any further discussion, gentlemen? Otherwise, is there a motion?
I make a motion for approval of the school's request of 1.278, 232 for the sales tax restrictions.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Very good, motion carries.
And I know
Thank you,
Mr.
folks.
Isley is here, but I didn't know if we had any other school board members, but on behalf of the board, we want to say thank you for the approval.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for bringing us this presentation. A lot of times we approve money, and then we just forget about it and don't hear. And it's good to bring this to us and to also to the public to let them know how the money's being spent. So we appreciate the time and effort you guys put into getting this presentation together for us. Thank you for being here tonight.
And we also would like for you to join us this upcoming Monday, January 25th at 6:00 p.m. for our land use study report. We're looking very forward to this report. I think this goes along with the goals and mission of your Vision 2020 plan. And
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to Ronnie, Lee, and Carrie. They've been invaluable for helping us with this. It is really nice to know that we've got such support at the county level, and all of our municipalities were as helpful, because the more information that we have, the better that we can plan, and the better that you all can plan for us as well. So I just want my hats off to the three of them since we're here.
Thank you, guys. Again, we appreciate it. Any other questions before Mr. Travis?
Well, I was going to ask my questions after the vote. Dr. Shotwell, I'm glad you're here, and I just wanted to say, I know it's a tremendous time. You can't please everybody. Some people want schools closed, some people want them open, some want half, and I understand y'all have had to make some hard decisions, and I appreciate the decisions y'all do make. But with that said, I want to bring to your attention that some requests for information have been given to you schools, not only by me, but the county manager and citizens, and it's been 6 months and we still haven't got a response. So I'm asking again publicly, I want to know how much money was saved since March of 2020 to now with schools being closed. You ain't got to answer it, I'm just saying I need to request.
Yeah, well, I do know there was one request, and we did fulfill it. It was back in either September or October, wanting to know how much savings that we had. And I believe at that time it was about $650,000, because we sent it over here to the county for that. But we can update you with that. But I did want to say, because I know the next question is probably going to be, so you've got savings, where did it go?
Where's it at? How much you got?
Okay. I do have the answer to that. How about that?
Okay.
All right. I wrote this down so that I'd have it right, okay? During the 18-19 school year, the district added $1.9 million to our local fund balance. This has been a trend for several years, and during the 19-20 school year, the district only added $655,000 to local fund balance. The decrease is the addition of fund balance as a result of several factors. In December of 2020, the classified staff salary schedule was reinstated, and all classified employees were placed on the correct pay level based on their years of experience, and retroactive back to July of 2019, and that was the right thing to do. Our board wanted that, and that's exactly what we did. The fund balance of approximately $2.5 million was budgeted for this salary benefit increase. The coronavirus hit the district in March of 2020, and the schools were closed for the remainder of the school year. However, salaries and benefits were still paid to employees. We did receive $450,000 in state funding in 2019-20 to help with COVID-19 expenses. However, the majority of this funding was spent on the salaries of our child nutrition department, because at that time we were not sure if we were going to get reimbursed or what they were going to do with child nutrition with paying for that program. Luckily, they've been able to have the summer program since March, and it still continues now until the end of this school year. Bless you. We were able to use the savings from the closure of schools in March of 2020 through June of 2020 to help fund the increase in the classified salaries, as well as make an additional payment of $507,000 on our current Chromebook lease. If you'll remember, we came to you about the Chromebooks that we bought for the kids. It was about $1.5 million, so we were actually a year ahead, which saves about, I think, we were calculating between about $25,000 by making the payment ahead of time. And then looking at the 2020-21 school year, We continue to see savings from the closures of schools. However, the reoccurring expense of the classified salary increase, we did move them the next step. We also added 6 mental health specialist positions, which has been a big relief for our school counselors to be able to do that because they help with risk assessments. And we've had almost, I think Dr. Ellis said, over 1,600 referrals or calls on our hotline since last March. So it's been a big help for us. We also increased the teacher supplement. We did a $500 per teacher across the board increase as well. And so it's roughly about a $1.3 million additional expense over and above our regular budget. And so this year, I do see the savings balancing that out. So at the end of the year, we don't see you're not going to have a large amount of money left at the end of the year. Any money that might be left at the end of the year will be in our electrical, gas, water, and oil. That's part of the deal that we made with Johnson Controls. We have to keep the budget the same. Now, granted, our payments don't start on that until they're finished with the last project, but we still want to go ahead and have that money set aside so that we can go ahead and start making that payment there. What I'm trying to say is that as we move forward, we've got, the board, myself, staff, we've got some tough decisions to make because as we increase our obligations, if we're in school full-time next year, then there has to be a place where we have to make cuts to make it balance out, because if you don't have an increase in revenue, you've got to make sure that your expenses go back. We do have about, I want to say that it's about $13 million in unrestricted fund balance. I'll give you the firm number. I'll email it to you tomorrow. That's the money that can be used for carrying over to the next year. What we have to be careful of is that if we ended up using for the 21-22 budget 1.5 million and there's no increase in revenue and there's no cuts, then in the 22-23 school year, you're going to be 3 million behind from where you were. That's right. And that's going to keep being a multiplier effect as that happens. And so we've got to, yes, we have savings. It's in our current expense. And I think you may have heard me talk about it at the board meeting on Wednesday. For us, when you give us the $888,000, that's strictly for capital. The 15.8 million for current expense is for current expense and it cannot be used for capital. The only way that we can do that is if we come to you with an approved resolution from our board saying we would like to move X number of dollars from our current expense to capital, and then we come to you all, and if you approve it, then we can move it in our ledger. We do that with activity buses about every 3 years. But that's why people sometimes ask the question, well, you've got this money in savings. But I also want to remind everybody, we got down to close to $2.8 million after we had built the fund balance up to about 13.5 million. And then we hit some hard times, but we were able to keep people employed. And then we've been able to build it back up. But I got a feeling with things changing that we're going to have to be very, very conservative in terms of what we need to spend the money on.
The other question I have is, how much money for COVID has the schools received?
The federal dollars, we received I think it was $3.2 million.
Okay.
We did have to share that with any private schools that we have in our jurisdiction.
Or charter schools?
No. Charter schools only qualify for it if they have a free reduced lunch program.
Well, so that's what I wanted to find out, because I'm trying to figure out what have y'all used the money on. I know you bought thermometers, hand sanitizers, some masks, some gloves, but I haven't heard any reports of any kind of plexiglass going up anywhere, no kind of cordon off, classroom desks or anything like that. So what are we using the COVID money to help for safety?
Well, we've used it for PPE. We've also been able to buy, so there were some hotspots, there were also some computers. We ordered computers back at the beginning of the school year, and they were that far behind. We should be getting them hopefully in February.
So we use COVID money to buy computers?
Yes, it was an allowable thing to do. So what we ended up doing, we used about half of it for Dr. Park's side with the operations and cleaning. So what we did do, we bought foggers for every school.
Right.
The middle and high schools have 2 each. So if we have a direct exposure, we want to go in and take care of that room.
Right.
Or take care of that
For
hallway,
cleaning.
whatever we need to
So we
do.
got like a fogger like
Yeah.
we got, right? The other question I have.
Well, it's not
I
that
know-
fancy.
I know the county purchased some items to go in our heating and air system to help kill germs as it goes through
Sure.
circulating. Are we installing that in our
We,
schools?
we're actually looking at that. It's neutral ionizers.
Right.
And so we're looking at the small ones, but we're also looking and seeing what it would look, how much it would be for the larger ones that could do whole classrooms that would be attached to some of our HVAC. And one of the other things that we've been doing too is that we're running the air an hour and a half before the kids are coming in to go ahead and circulate some fresh air in. And then at the end of the day, we're circulating it for another hour and a half. Because that's been some of our savings in the past. But that's one of the things that we're trying to do.
Thank you. I know it's trying times. I know y'all getting ready to open up for AABB.
I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see kids in the hallway again.
Well, I know you can't please everybody, and I put that on Facebook. You can't please everybody. Some people want the schools closed, some want them open. I think you reached out to a happy medium, tried to please everybody, and I know it's going to be a struggle for your teachers and the staff, but I think we can get it done. Anything's possible if people work hard at it, but I appreciate all your hard work on it. Thank you.
I just appreciate y'all's support for us too. I mean, that's been a big help for us too. Because I can just tell you, there's a lot of school districts that don't have the support from the commissioners like we have here.
Any other questions, comments? Again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Have a good
much for
night.
all your support.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
All right, y'all do the same.
Very well. That takes us to item number 8 on our agenda, and that's Lance Metzler, our county manager.
Yes, sir. As you probably know, that the emergency paid sick leave was 80 hours. It was mandated by the federal government. That went towards those who had COVID or quarantine that we sent home, and that expired on December the 31st of this past year. The stimulus bill does allow employers to continue to extend the emergency paid sick leave until March 31st. I contacted our local municipalities here. All of them are extending their emergency sick leave other than Wentworth. Wentworth obviously only has 2 employees, so they haven't extended theirs. What I'm requesting you all is to consider extending the 80 hours of emergency paid sick leave until March 31st for those who have not exhausted their 80 hours and to make it retro to January 1st of this year.
Commissioner Travis?
Quick question, Lance. What are we doing to make sure fraud's not going to be committed for some of these people taking sick leave?
I'm not sure how they could use it to.
I mean, can I go to you and say, I've been exposed, I need to go home? What are you going to do?
Let the verified.
How do you verify when you can't do HIPAA laws, you can't request any information?
We have to tell, I mean, if they said they're in direct contact with somebody that's got COVID, either a spouse or somebody we have got quarantined in the home, I mean, that's just.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Due to HIPAA, you can't really ask.
And matter of fact, we can send people home. If they have symptoms that we think are COVID related, we can send them directly home.
So that's what I'm trying to find out. How is the county going to know or verify that someone is actually needs to go home?
If they come with us and said, we are in direct contact, Lance is, direct contact with a positive case, then we have to send them home.
I understand. You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Lance, have you had a problem up until December 31? We were doing it most of last year.
Not a whole lot, no, sir. Out of the whole group, maybe a couple.
So this is something you just observe and notice trends and try to keep track of?
Yes, sir. And those who've already used time up, they don't get another 80 hours. They get, if they've used up 70 hours, they've got 10 left.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good with it. I mean, I'm good with it. I just want to make sure fraud's not going to.
Okay.
Well,
Commissioner Richardson?
Well, I personally think Lance has done a remarkable job in managing personnel through this COVID. I move approval of the request.
I second.
And I agree with Commissioner Richardson. I think Lance, you and your staff have done an outstanding job, and working in good faith is all you can do. And so I will second that motion.
All right, and that's a motion, and we do have a second. Let me make a comment if I can. I won't say most, but a lot of industries are opting to do this as well through March.
Yeah.
And some even would do it even further, as you pointed out. So I think this just eliminates some confusion.
Yeah.
And I think it shows trust, and we're trying to be fair with the county employees.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lance.
Yes, sir.
That brings us to item number 9 with Ms. Carrie Spencer, our Director of Community Development. It's good to see you back tonight.
The planning board has reviewed the draft land use plan and recommended approval. Paul Sinowitz, the chairman of the board, is here tonight. Asked if he could come in case you had any questions for him. At this point, land use plans are adopted in the same method as a zoning map amendment or a text amendment, just to kind of reiterate that. So we're at the point now where we're reviewing the land use plan for you to get comfortable enough to the point where you can direct us to schedule a public hearing for it. So with that, and in parallel, we'll be reviewing the UDO. The planning board will be doing their first workshop. There'll be 2 workshops at the end of January and February for the UDO to review, ask questions, and give us comments for that. So that's happening in parallel. With that, I will turn it over to Eric. Does anyone need, I'll go ahead and ask this question. Does anybody need us to bring the plan up on the screen? No. At this point, we can wait. If you have specific pages to refer to, we can, but I've got it in case it's needed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nice to see you again. Again, Eric Ulrich with Destination by Design. Not sure exactly how you all want to approach this document. I know you've had the print copy now for several weeks. I'll throw out a suggestion that we can start by just opening it up, share with me, Carrie and I, any comments, concerns you might have, any questions you might have. That's one approach. Another, which could be done in addition to that, is we could really hone in on chapter 4, which starts on page 43, which is the recommendations chapter. This is a chapter that really lays out some pretty explicit policies. The implementation chapter, which starts on page 76, provides a summary of all of the policy statements that are in the document. So that also might afford a way in which we could communicate back and forth as you all have comments and so forth. So with that being said, I would just ask kind of what might be the pleasure of the board and how can I be of assistance?
Chairman, any questions? Well, help me understand what the purpose of this document. Is this a guideline? Is this going to be an ordinance? Talk to us about what this is going to be used for, how it will be used in guiding development in our community.
Sure. So this is a policy document. It is not an ordinance. It is not a law. It's meant to provide primarily guidance as it relates to your zoning ordinance. According to state law, you all need, well, really according to the new 160D legislation that's been passed, you all have to adopt a land use plan that supports your zoning ordinance, your UDO, and so forth that we're continuing to work on. So how might it be used? For example, someone comes to first the planning board to rezone a piece of property to, say, commercial. The planning board would then take this document, look at the future land use map, look at various policies, and make a determination as to whether or not the project's in conformance with the land use plan. They might choose to approve it, even though it doesn't perfectly conform based on various criteria. That we've tried to make things as flexible as possible. So say they make a recommendation that's positive, that comes to you all. It would say, according to policy, 4.13 or 4.2.5, and other various findings that they have, that we recommend approval of this particular item. So that's probably going to be your most common use of this planning document.
All right, help me understand something. You mentioned page 76, so we'll start there.
Sure.
The middle column, item 1. It says increase the county's occupancy tax rate by 1% to fully capture the 6% allowed by the NC General Assembly. So you're asking us to approve a tax increase. Is that right?
So this is a policy recommendation. This is you all actually making that change from a tax perspective is a completely separate matter. Here from an economic development, what page are you on here?
76. Middle column, item 1. Goal 3.
So are you sure 76?
Yeah.
I'm seeing the implementation matrix.
Right here.
That's on the vision plan that we were given a few weeks ago.
Huh, there's some mislettering here. I'm with you now, okay. Yes. So this is underneath the economic development section. It pertains to the goal to promote sustainable tourism development that improves quality of life for residents, preserves the natural and cultural resources of the county. So one of the objectives or policies that you will to support that goal would be to do that. By approving this document, no, you would not be doing that, right?
It's just a recommendation y'all think we should get to.
Yes, yes. And in fact, we could even lighten up the language of that, such as
Take it out.
consider
Yeah, take it on now.
or take it on out.
The idea is to make sure that your zoning ordinances support uses and development that will bolster this tax, because you aren't making as much tax as you could be. So in order to increase the occupancy tax toward what is allowed by NC statute, perhaps that would be more of a.
So I work with tourism and development authorities all over the state.
I'm listening, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, I work with tourism and development authorities all over the state. This is something that's a recommendation from our team, okay? So this isn't something that staff or anyone else has pushed or anything else. It's something that we recommend, and I'll just try to justify that and go from there. So we work with tourism and development authorities all over the state. Most of them have a 6% occupancy tax. It's not going to put you at a disadvantage. This, again, is when someone comes into your community, they stay in a short-term lodging, and they pay that tax. 1/3 of those dollars can be used for capital infrastructure projects that relate to outdoor recreation, paddle trails, greenways, parks, things that tie into other objectives that you all have. So my only recommendation here is there's 5% now. Legislature allows, and most of your competitors are at 6%. So why not take advantage of that? So that's our intent.
Yeah.
And
I think you touched on something,
Yep.
Commissioner Burton.
Well, I think he touched on it. He and I talked about this before the meeting.
Yep.
And I believe what you've got is hotels, bed and breakfast, those sort of.
Airbnb has been a major factor, yes.
Yes, and that's where the tax is paid. I believe his staff, I asked him where it came from, and he indicated his staff put it together and apparently make that recommendation anytime you're not at the allowable rate.
Yep.
But it is for short-term lodging.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's, people from out of town come in and pay it. You're able to reinvest it in your own community to improve quality of life and so forth.
It's not an additional burden we're putting on our local taxpayers.
That's the beauty of it. No, sir. That's the beauty of it.
Continue on, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's a great comment, though. I mean, that's the reason that that's in there. One thing that we could do, so it's not quite as explicit, I could say, consider, start that sentence off with something like consider an increase.
I like it. Yeah, consider.
Unless you all are absolutely prepared that, hey, this is a good move. So. Any other questions?
Well, if I may, if you can go to page 49.
Okay.
Starting number 8, as far as the distance between driveways, is that something from DOT? Is that something from, or where did that come from?
So this is an item that's come through a lot of different discussions with the advisory committee and us talking with staff. But there's an issue. And again, this is a very common recommendation for us, particularly in rural counties. What you have is you take, a pretty significant collector road, and we already see it happening right now in Rockingham, where it'd be driveway cut, driveway cut, driveway cut, driveway cut, all the way down a road. All of a sudden, safety becomes an issue visually from it. You lose kind of your rural character that way. So the policy statement in here is meant to kind of guide the UDO to some extent, to where try to create the internal road, but still allow a certain amount of, and we talked about this before, talking about minor subdivisions or some major, we got into quite a bit of debate about that the last time I spoke to you all. So that's the intent, is increase the lot width there so you don't have so many driveway cuts, in some instances, maybe it's not as bad in this county, but for miles it could occur. So that's the intent. How that's implemented in the UDO is kind of another matter.
So is there anywhere, I didn't see it, but is there anywhere in the document that defines rural subdivision?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think that anywhere where there's not sewer, you're looking pretty much at a rural subdivision. Certainly if there's not sewer or water.
And as far as the distance that's listed in here, is it ever tied to speed limit?
No. We're trying to tie this idea of the collector road, and we say here rural roads. In the UDO, we kind of clarified that more for the collector road, but that's where you're getting into that 45, 55 mile an hour.
But that is, in the UDO is
Right.
where we would choose speed limit versus the type of road, collector versus thoroughfare. So this is, the policy just says to consider some way of separating.
Well, and with that, I guess that's where I've got a little heartburn with putting a distance between driveways in this document as opposed to somewhere else. Because then this dictates policy and drives what you do somewhere else.
You take out the numerical.
Right.
Yeah.
And then number 10, the manufactured homes, I just want to make sure that we are talking about the same type of structure. I mean, manufactured homes nowadays look much different than they did 15 years ago. So that's
And are you referring to policy number 9?
that would be number 10.
Okay.
But I just want to be careful with the use of manufactured homes to make sure we don't
Yeah, so these are homes that are built to the HUD standard, whereas modular, stick-built are obviously built to North Carolina building code, right?
Right.
So what this particular policy says, and I'll just read it, manufactured homes should be permitted only within minor subdivisions, which is the 3 lots or less, which that's actually changed too. right?
Yeah.
That's actually
take
should be,
that out.
because that was, I think we went to 5.
Yes, I believe that's what I was.
Anyway, I'll just strike that. We'll strike what's in parentheses there. Or within manufactured home districts. So this is somewhat similar to your exact policy right now, except you have to rezone to your rural mixed zoning district. Okay, the RM, residential mix, sorry, the residential mixed zoning district. So what we're doing here is we're clarifying that we're going to change that to, it'd actually be called a manufactured home district, which is what we have now, what we propose in the new UDO. So it creates a whole lot more clarity for people to know what's being rezoned around them and so forth. The way you all have it in your current ordinance, I've just never seen it. And policy number 11 connects to that. So now we clarify this, establish a new zoning district for manufactured home parks, remove manufactured homes as a permitted use within the residential mixed zoning district. And you're going to see that residential mixed zoning district come up later on because we repurpose that for your areas that have water, sewer, they're in the primary target growth area, but they aren't suitable for commercial, but we want to create higher density residential and a mixed type of residential. So we're talking about clustering. So that RM zoning district, water, sewer, clustering. So just creating a lot more clarity, I would suggest.
Yeah, please feel free to interrupt me because I don't know what page you want to go to. My next one's on page 50.
Yeah, I'd like to interject because this refers to something you brought up about spacing of driveways. And I'm not trying to articulate how this should be written, but one of the factors that's in there in driveway placement that I don't think is always fully taken into account, at least I can point out several places, is driveways being connected to farm to market roads, North Carolina provided roads that don't have an adequate visibility. In fact, they're being put in curves where you can't see traffic coming, and I think it becomes a hazard to the public. And so I think as you look at this, I would hope that you would include the safety factor in examining driveway placement.
So NCDOT issues a driveway permit. If it is a residential use, even if it has poor sight distance, they have to issue that.
Not for an individual residential use, no. They don't for individual residential use. They just do for that subdivision access.
I don't need to know the history. I just want you to
Okay.
take it into account because it's a public safety matter.
Yeah.
Well, except that we certainly should not adopt a document that overrules DOT or.
Well, if we need to, if DOT is not covering a concern by it.
Well, I think we would need to have some sort of study that indicates that DOT is not covering that. I mean, we're making an assumption that the people with the state are not performing their jobs.
I don't want to call any names, but I made inquiries at the DOT about this very thing because I know people that have almost had a major accident.
Yeah.
And they are aware.
It's an issue. It's an issue. Yeah.
Not trying to solve that problem right here. I'm saying that needs to be part of this overall thing.
And since they don't require driveway permits for individual residential lots.
Right.
But you bring up a good point, if whatever criteria we use for driveway spacing, we should collaborate with DOT, because we've got
Yes.
Absolutely.
visibility, we've got
Absolutely.
road type, we've got speed, and talk to them about what would be the best criteria.
Yes, but we should not put additional regulations over and above what DOT
This would.
has in place.
Yeah, this would, the fact that the spacing would be, the fact that because we have no spacing between driveway requirement right now. And since DOT doesn't require an individual residential lot driveway permit at all, we do with our building permit process. And always have, so that's, I'm just being honest, that is something we're doing.
But I guess my question is, this 300 feet pertains to the rural subdivisions is the term we use. So this would pertain to new subdivisions as opposed to individual residents.
That's
Is
correct.
that what I'm hearing you
That's
say?
correct, too, but three or five, okay. It would require, it would apply to, either minor or major subdivisions, depending on how we define it in the UDO. But not to an individual driveway, no. Just when subdivisions are created.
Okay.
But we don't have defined rural subdivisions anywhere, so.
No, I heard you say that, maybe.
Yeah, I'm definitely using the term loosely here.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we can look at that, because we
Yeah,
were
but-
consistent.
Again, I want to be sure to clarify, this document is not an ordinance, but it will be used as a guideline as we develop policies.
That's correct. And this is a living document. I mean, you all might add policies, tweak policies, remove policies as things progress as well.
Actually, we would just say allow subdivisions to be permitted, and then the UDO would take care of the density and lot size restrictions
Yeah.
that would make it rural or not. So that is a big policy change, is to allow subdivisions by right
There's,
within our RA, rather than having to read them to RP, like we do now.
and there's an emphasis on the word rural here because of the item or the theme that it's trying to promote, and that is protecting the rural character of Rockingham County. That was the intent, okay? Which is one of the kind of the key themes there that came out of the different stakeholder meetings, the real estate group and the advisory committee and others, right? So we came up with those 5 emerging kind of themes, and this is one that's trying to protect the rural character. So I think that's why I'm trying to emphasize the word rural here quite a bit.
Yeah, versus a area that would have to be rezoned because it's more lots than would be considered rural.
Mr. Berger, you ready?
Yeah. No, if we're done with this part, I mean, I'm ready to go to the next part.
Commissioner Travis, did you have something?
It just seems like this is a big undertaking. It might be something better for a retreat than a commissioner meeting.
Well, my goal would be to present it for us not to take action tonight. But I think, we need to look at it, and I think some of the changes that we're asking them to look at could be brought up, and I'm sure we'll hear input from the public as well in the next couple of weeks.
I think it'd be okay to go ahead and schedule a public hearing on it, but I would do it at least a month out, give us time to make notes and talk about it.
You gotta have a document ready before.
Or have a retreat or something. Huh?
We're asking them to make changes tonight.
Are you interested in a less formal workshop or retreat?
I mean, are we gonna go through this whole thing right now?
It's on the agenda.
Huh?
It's on the agenda.
Plan to review the presentation of it, I don't know how much more that is.
Yeah, I mean, there's not an overload of policies here. We try to keep it fairly simple so it stays flexible. But if you look at page 49 there, that's kind of your more rural policies. Again, these tie to that O2 district, which ties to the future land use map, which is on page 45 there. So there you see that kind of O2, your rural residential agricultural lands. So these are policies that tie to that particular area.
And actually, rural means low density. We've used the term low density on the other page. Low density, single family residential is what we're talking about as rural subdivisions.
So there's, what, 11 policies pertaining to that rural kind of ag related area. We talk about agritourism businesses. We talk about churches, schools, community centers are compatible. We talk about the voluntary ag district. We talk about commercial land uses. Might be appropriate where formal commercial but vacant buildings exist. Out in the county, there's a variety of historical kind of commercial buildings that might exist, but they aren't necessarily in your target growth areas per se. We talk about high-impact land uses. Yes, everything is fairly standard. And then obviously, number 8 there, you all brought to my attention. We need to make a tweak on number 10. So I'm going to put a check by number 8 and 10 to improve the wording there.
I think anytime we quantify something, it's probably, I'll do a
Yeah.
review and see, to look for times that we quantify more than what we would be doing.
Yeah, sure.
I guess then on number 50 is the same thing with that distance in number 4.
Yep, I'm going to G14, that policy, going to tweak.
Yes.
Again, the first policy there talks about encouraging residential development to be located in areas surrounding those existing rural crossroads. Again, you're encouraging that, but you're going to have development happening everywhere. And we understand that.
Then on 52, as far as the parking side and rear, what's driving that? Because the rural setting, we certainly have a number of structures that already have parking in front, and you're creating a situation where the building would be closer to the road if you're requiring parking in the rear. And
I'm sorry, which policy are you on here?
it's actually page 52, which is 14.1.
Oh, yeah, the exhibit, yeah.
It just indicates commercial buildings provide parking predominantly on the side and rear. And then this architecture language, I think is some heartburn.
Yeah, fair enough. And these are just things that support our conceptual design that we've produced here, okay? So these aren't necessarily policy statements that are in G1, but we took a stab. Our urban design team said, okay, if we were to take this, and this is actually Whitty Crossroads, for example, we just picked one. Like, it's not like we're proposing anything specific here, but we said, all right, let's take a Dollar General, a gas station, a fast food, and I think the other one's like a rural ag type of business. And we said, all right, how would that be developed over time? But yeah, from an urban design standpoint, yeah, we would try to bring those buildings up a little bit so you just don't have big parking lots at those intersections. And parking would be to the side and to the rear. And then that way you'd actually start to form a community and a place and a space as opposed to more of a strip type of development. There's nothing in here that prohibits the strip type of development. There's nothing in the UDO that prevents that. This is looking at something that's very optimal. So as the planning board, as staff, can kind of look to the developer and say, look, can you do some things to help kind of make this look more like a place as opposed to a strip little design center of some sorts. So this is to provide a negotiation tool or something else to look at. This is very hard to achieve in a rural area, but it's something that could separate you all from other rural communities at the same time as well. So.
And that page 53 is just it's a concept plan on page 53. If you like the way that looks, if you like the way that concept could potentially be created at an intersection, page 52 is just telling you how you would get there.
Yeah.
It's just an example of this is something that you want to encourage, or maybe it's not the kind of design that you want to encourage.
Yeah, these key points are things that that are components of our particular design.
Yeah.
Like for example, that one in the southwest corner, that is essentially a Chick-fil-A footprint with a drive-through. You know, but your parking area is in the back, your drive-through kind of goes through it, and this is not actually an uncommon design for them. That one in the northwest corner, that is a gas station where you have the building kind of facing the front, and then the canopy kind of comes perpendicular off the building to the back. So we're trying to do some things from an urban form standpoint in a relatively rural area, so we completely understand that. But if you could imagine coming up to this intersection, it would feel like a community and a place, as opposed to seeing 4 intersections of massive parking lots with buildings pushed way back. So, again, we weren't aggressive to put those types of things in the policy, but to show you how an alternative design could look.
And these would be guidelines that we would be asking developers to consider, but it's not a requirement. Is that right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm a little concerned about following up on what you're stating. I accept their guidelines, and I think they're good by and large. But when you get down with, these are the guidelines that are going to lead to ordinances, and we want to be able to work with those if we want them to give the builders and the public in general the sort of guidance.
This would be this would not be an RA district, this would be a developer saying, yeah.
I'm just talking about the process. I understand what you're saying there. Because one of the objectives we have overall in doing this over again is so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time somebody wants to do something and change the ordinance, change the court, or provide a waiver. We want the ordinances to give clear guidance that don't have to be questioned at every planning board meeting.
Absolutely. And they'll have options. That's my own, the ordinance will have options that will even be.
We're agreed. I'm just concerned about this leading to the ordinance.
Right, and I think that's where a lot of my concern comes from. I mean, certainly page 56, number 3, talks about architect again. I think we either need to define this or omit it from this document because it belongs somewhere else. Page 57. Yeah, that's on 56.
Yeah, it's in 56 item. The G23 policy, architectural, and then the G36 policy,
Yes.
basic architectural. And of course, you all have seen those drafts in the UDO and what they look like as well. So yeah, we can pull, improve, however you all want to move forward with that particular item.
And then number 9, I think, comes out because we're not a municipality. I don't think it applies.
On 57.
Yes.
Yeah, I just know that your EDC is helping to facilitate some of those areas, so there's a little bit of crossover.
There's a little bit of crossover, but it really doesn't play into our land planning
Yeah.
as far as what's happening with the way number 9 reads.
Sure. So I'm fine to, you all want to strike number 9 then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The number 5, let's see. The word reserve, same page. I think the word reserve is a major issue when you're talking about other people's property. And I know this is just a guidance, but again, it gets into what Commissioner Richardson said, the adoption of policies. So I'd be fine eliminating number 5.
So I'll try to argue the other side real quick, if I may. So here's a scenario where someone comes to a particular property, they want water and sewer. It's in an area in which you all as commissioners, and maybe even explicitly in the plan, said looks like a property that'd be very suitable for commercial development. Okay? Right along your primary corridor, you got water and sewer. And you all know, if that property doesn't become commercial to some extent, there's no other suitable area for commercial to probably spur at that particular time. This policy is meant to protect you in that particular case. You all could say, look, we're trying to reserve certain strategic areas for commercial development, so it's not just all housing. There's only a handful of properties that might be the case.
I guess
So that's my intent.
we've got a difference of opinion on the purpose of this document.
Okay.
To me, the purpose of this document is not to protect the government, but to protect the people.
Okay.
And if the government wants to do something as far as protect the piece of property and develop it, then the government needs to buy it and not control private citizens' property. So I guess we're looking at it completely different. And I'm looking at it in light of how do we protect the people from the government?
Sure.
So, that's the light I look at these documents in.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah, in line with, excuse me there, but in line with what he's saying, if you change reserve to encourage, not give it the power of law.
Right.
That's the suggestion.
I'm good with that.
Do you agree with the philosophy of the intent of the policy?
I think I agree with having future plans and agree with having perhaps, you've always got a plan for the future in how you grow and what you do, but I certainly have a problem with the government trying to dictate what's taking place. And so but you did also mention something that I think was omitted from these policies that may need to be added, and you did just mention it, and that has to do with water sewer expansion. That wasn't spelled out, and I certainly think that's been a topic that we've taken up. So
Yeah, the G3
We want to
first
be more
policy.
predictable about that particular
Yes.
one, too.
Yes.
So G3-1 there. So G3 is your primary growth corridor, Highway 220 corridor. So on page 57, I would just say G3-1, and then how the G3 ties into the future land use map, which is, again, on page 45.
Well, Eric, I may be premature, but, and I appreciate what you're trying to do there, with go to one, because that's very pertinent. But in 5, how would you see, what sort of ordinance would you envision coming out of Objective 5, Goal 5? What's the ordinance going to say? How are we going to reserve this property?
You all are going to have, I think, particularly as you run sewer down 220, a tremendous amount of growth pressure, right? It's going to go, let's say, okay?
Sure.
In the future land use map on page 45, we highlight that whole G3 kind of corridor, particularly everything south of Madison, and then we got around 68, 65, we got kind of this big blown out area.
It's good. I
Right.
love your map. How are we going to reserve it? That's what I want. But what's it going to say when it turns to an ordinance rather than a conceptual goal?
It's not going to say reserve. I think that reserve is just
We're going to say
change it to encourage. Change it to encourage. And then the ordinance, the UDO will create different zoning districts with higher or lower intensity development. And based on what this is saying, if you don't like a high intensity zoning ask, or if you don't, that is not in an appropriate, that's in a more rural area and it doesn't suit your plan, then it gives you the opportunity to say it doesn't follow the policy. If somebody asks for a rural subdivision on 220, it's entirely up to you to say whether that rural subdivision does or doesn't fit this policy. It's not gonna tell you what zoning district can go where.
So most of that,
Let me be a little specific, and Commissioner Berger, please listen up, because I'm not trying to speak for you on this thing. But I'll give you an example. I know Mr. Bennett and I know Mr. Hopper that live in the yellow area that you just pointed out on 45. I don't want to be put into a position and say, Mr. Hopper, you can, and Mr. Bennett, you can't. I don't, is that what you're saying? That's not our business, right? But we can encourage, well, we can encourage in various ways, but both of them already have water and sewage running across their properties. And that's normally how we encourage things, is by providing infrastructure.
you know, does one of those properties have a crossroads that ties directly to 220? You know, you're gonna be looking at a variety of factors on a case-by-case
Is that going to show up in
basis.
the ordinance?
No, it's not.
Now we're getting that, to-
But say, for example, and this happens to a lot of our clients, big out-of-town tract home developer comes into town. There's water, sewer, intersection 220, and take a cross street. They want to come in, because tracts home, frankly, that's all we do. We don't really care what the land use plan is. We don't care if this is the only property that's suitable for commercial. That's just what we do. And so that's their proposal. So what do you do in that particular situation? But all of this property here, most of it is zoned RA20. So people are going to be coming in here for rezonings. So I can't tell you, like, how is the UDO and how is it going to work? There's still major decisions that have to be made from you all as a leadership. The UDO will not tell you, and nor does the plan meant to tell you on specific properties.
Let me interject if I may. Well, go ahead, Commissioner Berger.
I guess my question is going to be, and I read this document from cover to cover, and I think my colleagues is hitting on this. To be guidelines, there's verbiage that's throughout this document that gives more direction than recommendations. When you see the word shall, and some of that verbiage, it concerns me that when the planning board looks at a particular request and uses these guidelines, although we may call them guidelines, the decision they make would be based on some of the verbiage in here.
Sure.
Would lead them down a path that may be concerning, or that we may, or a future board may have some concerns with, that will create unnecessary conflict in decisions between the two boards. And if I'm trying to be as politically correct as I can when I say that, we may not agree with their outcome based on the guidance within this document. So when I say that there's some verbiage issues in here, I think my colleagues have done touched on some of them, but it's just that to be guidelines, there's some verbiage that gives a lot of direction, and that's my concern on most everything that I heard someone address. It's been with the verbiage and the guidelines, the way they present themselves.
Can we take that as a directive to really look through these?
Well, I'm just saying it's
that they're asking for?
it was well, I certainly think it should be looked at.
Carrie, if I can direct this to you, this page 45 that you mentioned, we're specifically looking at the 220 corridor. What I had kind of envisioned this document doing is allowing an individual who might be looking to buy property to come in and look at it and say, okay, look, if I want to do a commercial development, the county says this looks like it's probably going to be a good area for commercial development, and it may or may not be zoned properly, but they would look at it and say, okay, well, this kind of meets what the county would like to see, not what the county has to see.
That's right.
But, you know, just provide guidance. In other words, we've already had a situation come up where someone bought property on 220, wanted to rezone it for commercial use. It was, as you mentioned, it was on RA. But it made sense to this board to rezone that property. And of course, a couple of the neighbors around were upset. But with a policy like this, if somebody's looking to buy a residential property in that area, they would be kind of forewarned that it's a possibility that this may end up going to commercial at some point in the future. Am I thinking properly?
Actually, that's a good point. So if the property owner on 220 wants to build residential right now, you do not want a policy that says, no, we're gonna allow that. But know that this is our area targeted for commercial development, so don't complain later when there is a
All right,
business.
so it's kind of buyer beware.
And
So,
the- and
I'm not opposed to something that would provide guidance or awareness to people looking to buy or that already have property there. I just, as Commissioner Richardson had pointed out, we're just concerned about saying you can't do this.
Understood. And then, so part of the encouraging is, and why this area is such a focus is because that's where you have been focusing your infrastructure expansion investments.
And
And so it's bringing those things together.
And that actually, my next one was on page 80, the infrastructure expansion. I'm just curious if the committee identified those future locations or how we identified those for it to appear in the document.
Are you talking about the phase, the
Well,
map or the?
No, page 80, which has near term, less than 3 years, future, require appropriation.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering how you came up with,
I was in conversations with staff and Mr. Lester.
okay, so not necessarily with the committee.
Well, they came to the committee. I mean, they were actually invited to become part of the committee during the process. But no, I don't,
I guess my
The
concern,
advisory group wasn't asked, what do you think about
Well,
this?
they've had access to the map, and we've talked through, I mean, honestly, our team has even been somewhat hands-off, kind of looking from staff and, like, what is the policy that you all are kind of working towards as it relates to sewer and water infrastructure? And I'm just going to take that and plug it in, like, that's been our intent. So if there's tweaks or things we want to do, we're more than.
well, I guess this is more towards staff then. My concern with that answer is I'm not aware of those members of staff being very active in developing property. But I am aware of members of that committee being active in developing property. And I would think that committee would have much more expertise than staff on what would make sense in that list.
We can certainly put it back to them with that question, that you would like to hear their input, their direct input on it, not just that they've seen the map, but that they, how do they feel about those?
Well, the listed area, and are there other areas that should be listed? Because again, I'm not sure that staff has the experience necessary to develop that list.
Yeah, my perception of this map is that the projects that are listed as near term are all related to developments that you all have approved and that water is being extended to. All those in the future are on some type of wish list that's been developed. Now, in terms of getting the advisory group and others, the challenge is that we can say we should run sewer here or water here, and we don't know, like, is this going to require a pump station? Is this going to require,
Right.
What type of engineering thing or item? What are the implications of that type of recommendation? And that's where there's a little, it would take a lot of sessions, I think, with not just us, but the engineer, to get there. So I think our intent, again, look at the current developments you all have approved, that where you all have approved water, put those in the plan, and just lay out some of the future things that have been in some of the guiding documents.
And I think with that information will kind of, the summary would then be adjusted based on the directives, I guess, that, or suggestions that we've,
Yeah, if I can make a proposal, so the summary implementation matrix that you have, that lists out all the different policies that are in the whole document. I think that I take that document, I go in there and do track changes of words I'm going to change, tweaks, policies. I'll leave them in there and just line through them, the ones that we want to delete. And then we just go back and forth on that document. And then once we have approval of that, we'll go in, update all the policies in accordance with those changes you have approved, and then we have a document.
And our directive for us to do that, to guide us to that, is taking out quantitative measures,
Yep.
taking out directives. This is a board that is more focused on individual property rights, so we want to make sure that there aren't direct must-do type language. It'd be good to know, too, given that the ideas behind it, though, are still something that you support, that you could get behind as an encouragement to people. I do, that's something that's, and I'll circle back on the infrastructure expansion, get more information about what was the intent behind those particular.
right, and they may all be very legitimate places for expansion, but I just know that the committee has a number of folks that have years of experience with development. Some in the commercial area, some in the residential area, and really think their input on what areas make sense would be very important to get.
We'll go back to that. Where would you like to see the next water line? To the advisory group.
Sure. Yeah. Well, where do we need to concentrate? What areas?
Where do you think, besides this general?
Right. And they may agree completely, but
I know they agree on the general area. As far as those specific locations, we have to go back and see.
and perhaps the result is that we leave it somewhat general
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
as opposed to specific roads, because then that gives flexibility. And I know this isn't ironclad, but it still gives the manager and his staff some direction, and as they're bringing things to us, they're thinking, this is the way we need to go. So we may want to be more general there.
And I'm thinking they're upgrades, or they're based on current development pressure, and they're worthy of putting on there because it says, hey, we're already talking about putting this water line extension. Therefore, it's a good place to focus development. But let's circle back to that, and then we'll come back to you with that answer. This is something that was already in the works. This is something that was something the advisory group.
Very good. I saw several shaking heads during that, but when Eric was saying he was going to take that, is that what I understand?
Yeah.
And we don't need to take an action, just by consent, we can do that. Is that right, John?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you can have that, you can make it to the form of a motion if you so desire, as a board to.
I don't think we need to. I think just by consent, we can provide direction.
Mr. Chair, would it be advantageous to, I know we meet sometimes in government, but would it be advantageous to develop a small two-person committee from the Board of Commissioners to work with Carrie and Eric, and maybe some members from the Planning Board or from the committee that's set up to flush it all out?
I think it would probably be advantageous, that way we don't take up this kind of meeting with the board. I think that would be a good idea.
So if you have maybe two, so you don't have three, which would be an official meeting, but if you designate two commissioners.
I think the chairman could probably make a determination, talk with each one of the commissioners.
Yeah, chair and vice chair.
All right. Well, we'll do that then.
Good idea.
I'll give the commissioners, we'll set up two commissioners, and we'll talk with the planning chair.
Okay.
And see what we can do.
And
Is that okay, Paul?
Yes.
Very good.
And I think one Zoom call, and I could be ready next week or the week after that. I'll have that summary document with my proposed recommendations, and we can just go through that over a Zoom call and back go back and forth over each policy.
Very good.
So,
On sort of unsettled area, that one of the things that we need to, I guess, just decide before it transfers to the UDO is on those design guidelines and whether they should be included at all.
I would like to, for us to discuss that in committee.
Yes. Yeah.
there you go.
Very good, thank you, guys, we appreciate everything tonight.
You want to table it, or what are you doing?
I think we're just by consent, going to ask them to make these changes and then bring them back to committee. If you want to make it as a motion, we can.
That's fine.
So John says
I'm
we
good.
don't have to.
I'm good.
It's either, Mr. Chair, you have that, if you'd like to make the form of the motion, you can, but that's up to your discretion.
We're good. Okay.
Very good, by consent, just do that and we'll get together. Gary, we'll get in touch with you, with the committee, and I'll be in touch with you, Paul.
It's actually very meaningful guidance. It felt like we were bouncing around. It really wasn't. I think we got some really good.
It was great.
I mean, really, it was just we were able to talk about it. It was because we have a lot of direction. Appreciate that.
We felt it needed to be discussed.
Oh, yeah, great.
And I'm sure we'll hear from some members of the public as well.
Okay.
So that'd be good, thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 10, new business. Mr. Manager, is there any new business? Very good. That being said, we'll go into commissioner comments. Commissioner Travis,
I have no comment.
Commissioner Pearl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to reiterate, appreciate our Health Director Trey Wright being here tonight and the update that he gave us. Encourage you right now that we have had an increase in the number of cases in Rockingham County, and tragically it's resulted in quite a number of deaths. And we probably all know someone who's been touched by this pandemic. So I encourage you to use personal responsibility in addressing the issues within your own families, and remember the social distance. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pearl. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I endorse everything Commissioner Pirtle just said, but I'd like to include in there our county manager, who was very active in setting up a system to provide these vaccinations, and I'm satisfied that we're staying vigilant and doing that as efficiently as we can so we don't waste a single dose, especially since they seem to be in short supply. So, and I'd also remind the public in general, going to be colder for the next couple weeks. Watch out for young people, but particularly old people that might suffer due to the cold weather. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Berger.
Well, we will, when you say watch out for young people, I think that's very important because in the coming days, they will be back in school in person to some degree. So you may have some kids waiting at the bus stop. And so certainly be careful as you're driving through certain neighborhoods. Also want to thank Paul, I hope I pronounce it, Sinowitz, okay, our chair of our planning board, and his wife Judy for being in attendance. Appreciate your work on all of this. I know our sheriff was here earlier. I believe he had to run out. Also, Tony Reese and Bonnie Ferguson from the Board of Elections were in attendance. And then Mr. Isley, appreciate your attendance as well. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Berger. Again, I'd like to thank everyone who attended tonight, on the line and in person. We appreciate that. We take care of some things that sometimes aren't very exciting, but they're very important. So we appreciate everyone for their interest. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. And we will be in recess until January 22nd at 8 a.m. for our annual budget retreat in the Commissioners' Chambers. And can I have a motion to adjourn?
You can have one recess.
Thank you. Motion to recess. Very good. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are in recess.